Hi, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Geek Vibes Nation. I am your host, Tia, and please join me in welcoming back podcaster, producer, and all-around amazing guy, James Gavsie. How you doing today?
I am doing great, especially because, first of all, thank you for that great introduction. And you pronounced my last name correctly. Over the past month, I've had people just absolutely murder it. So it's a weird name. And so thank you for being you.
Thank you, thank you. I don't know, for some reason I want to start singing the intro to the Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend. So,
Oh my
thank you.
God. If I had a dollar when I'm sparring with people who are in jujitsu or whatever it is, or just boxing and they're spazzing or they're losing control, my go-to is who would win in a fight, Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet or the combined forces of the Golden Girls. And why is it the Golden Girls? Right?
It
And
has to be
people
the
come,
Golden Girls.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, B. Arthur
Yeah,
is the
alone.
most powerful of all. Anyway, not sure where we're going with this, but it's a great who would win matchup for later.
I think so, honestly. And I'd like to be the judge of that match. Which actually brings me to, so James, you and I have spoke before. As I said off camera, our first interview was about 3 years ago. You have this amazing podcast called Who Would Win. For those who are, say, not familiar with you, which you really need to be familiar with him, but for those who are not, please get everyone up to speed, who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Cool. Well, James Gavsie, and a producer, and part of in my journey of being a producer, I get to create shows and pitch shows. So I created a show called Who Would Win for this now non-existent digital platform called Mikasa, and they said, hey, we need a talking head show in combat sports. I'm like, great. I'm going to bring in my friends who are MMA fighters, and we're going to discuss who would win a hypothetical matchup with Bruce Lee versus Andre the Giant, just like fun, ridiculous things. And then the channel died horribly, as sometimes happens with streaming networks. And, it's a thing. And I said, you know what? Let's pivot and go towards my true love, which is geek culture. And I said,
Yes.
let's just do a podcast to create a proof of concept of this. I'm sure people will might find it entertaining. So it started off as a segment within someone else's podcast, and then that started growing, and then it became its own little thing. And then we went into the social media, and now it's full-fledged thing. So who would win? Just to put it mildly, it's a debate between me and my co-host Ray Stacanis, former pro wrestler, great dad, great person. Hate that guy because he's a jerk on the show. And we debate between who would win between Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter. That's it. There's no politics. There's no world, blah, 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 blah. We ignore anything happening that's important in the world and just focus on this. And we bring on the biggest celebrity judges like Tia, for example, who will then make a judgment based on the facts that we present in this battle.
And I want to thank you, by the way, for actually coming here and still being friends with me, because I think when I was a judge, I gave it to Ray. I
You
don't think
did.
you won.
You did. You did. I wasn't happy with that. And, I respect the judges even when they're wrong.
Hmm.
And when they are wrong, like how you were wrong on the show by giving the wrong judgment, I said, Tia's wrong. And this is the exception that proves that Tia's typically right because she was wrong on the show.
Yes,
But you
exactly.
do you. You do you.
I listen, I just Ray made really good arguments that day. And that's the thing about your show, right? It's you go in and initially you're like, okay, I know these characters in my head. I know who would win, but it's between really like who gives the best arguments, right? You and Ray, and like lay it out and everything. And you're like, wait, I actually have to think about this in a different way. So I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. So that's going well, obviously, and all that. We're here to talk about what's behind you, which I love. We got to talk about that artwork and everything. But your short film, Alpha Initiative Zero, I just saw the trailer. It looks really cool. So please tell me about it. First of all, who did that background art?
Well, that all comes from the Creative Extreme and the artists they hired. And the Creative Extreme is this great comic book company created by Svan Thomas, Chris Ipko, I should say. And these are two brilliant guys who said, "Hey, we see what's going on with comic book universes. We are going to create our own." So what they did is for one day, and they've got this book called Project 365. For one day, for a year, every day that year, they created a brand new character with artwork, with backstory and with how they fit in with this creative universe. So what happens is I met them at WonderCon 2017, And we started talking, and they showed me, and they bring out this spreadsheet, and they said, "Yeah, here's how these characters are interconnected." And I'm like, "This is something I want to be part of. I love it." So I've been big fans of theirs. We become friends, and again, wonderful human beings. Also, brilliant guys too. So fast forward, and I'm doing more projects, and I do a lot with some really great people in the stunt industry. And Michael Lair, who's been a fight coordinator for Extraction, the Continental, he's done a lot of stuff and helped out with John Wick. He was fight coordinator for Mortal Kombat 2, that's coming out in about a year or so, I believe. So this guy's really legit, and he and I have known each other for years. We wanted to work on a project together, and we're like, let's do a comic book superhero live action short to prove what we can do. So it came down to three comic book companies. One fairly big one, which will remain nameless, Advent Comics with Tony Cottrell. So I highly recommend you check out Advent Comics. They are absolutely amazing. And then the Creative Extreme. And we said, with what we want to do, we don't want to kill the budget with flying, explosions, and space, blah, blah, blah. Let's make this a bit more grounded. So we went with the Creative Extreme. The whole process to get the rights to use their characters for superhero live action short took about 3 minutes. I called them up, said, "Here's what I'd like to do. What do you say?" They're like, "We're in."
Nice.
Fantastic. And that was it. So with Michael Lair as the director, one of the writers, I was the executive producer, one of the writers, and really with Robin Pabello, who was our DP, our cinematographer, where she had to make this thing look like it was a Netflix premium type of show, which she had the hardest job, by the way. We really, really succeeded. And the action's insane. So think of Captain America meets John Wick, and that's kind of, or John Wick turns into Captain America, and as they're fighting something that's very, very bad, and that's kind of the encapsulated story of this short.
And I want to know like so much more about this, right? Because in the trailer, I mean, as you said, the stunts looked really great and everything. So at first, when you're watching it, you're kind of like, cool, this is like some secret ops, grounded sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, one of the character's eyes go completely white, and you're like, oh, okay, something else is going on and everything. So can you kind of get us up to speed of like what Alpha Initiative Zero is even about?
Absolutely. So great question. So the Creative Extreme actually put out a comic book for this team of and let me backtrack. In the Creative Extreme universe, there's something called the event, the quake, where this energy bombards Earth. Something happens, and people start emerging with powers, all different types of powers. And just like any great comic book universe, some are good, some are neutral, some are really, really bad, and there's different power levels. So the U.S. government's like, hey, you know what? We got to get ahead of this. Let's create our own team of special forces, super powered
Mm.
soldiers to take on what's about to emerge and all these different threats. So there's actually a comic book put out by the Creative Extreme for one of the first stories. Alpha Initiative Zero, the superhero live action short, is a prequel to the comic book and within canon of the whole universe. So in that storyline, there's, without giving away too much, there is someone very, very evil and psychopathic and who has the worst absolute power or best one that you'd ever want to give to a psychopath. And they're using it to do some very bad things with people. And this team is sent in to take out that psychopath. As that's happening, the main character, Lieutenant Richard, their powers start emerging kind of in different ways at different times that he can't predict.
That sounds so awesome. And so like how long did it take to even film this short?
So this is the crazy part. We did, in my approximation, probably 2 weeks worth of recording within 3 days.
Wow.
And we found, one of the weird things we did, it looks like we've got about 4 to 5 different locations within the short. It's all within the same massive building in the fashion district in downtown LA that has like a cellar that looks like a prison. The first floor has a church and a set of office type rooms, office, I should say. And the top floor is this crazy warehouse, like out of The Crow, with like these windows from floor. And I'm like, what is happening with this? And then we had our whole script, and Michael Lair said, great, we're going to change the story in the script to fit the location. And it was a brilliant thing he did. And we were able to keep our cameras and everything, all our production equipment at the same location in another space, and just kept, it was actually a brilliant thing on Michael's part because by doing that, we didn't have to move spots, we didn't have to change lighting that much. So it was 3 days, 12-hour days of really intense stuff. Now, just to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, we did a ton of pre-production. So
Hmm.
we spent way more time than 3 days. We spent months on pre-production so that when it came time to execute the actual recording, the stunts, everything we had to do, we were able to do that with precision. And that's again thanks to
Right.
Michael Lair and Robin Pabello. And then the big trick after you're finished is, hey, VFX and now sound design and color grading and like, oh, this doesn't work or what have you, and trying to figure all that out. So post production is a big, big, huge chunk of that, which takes a lot of time.
I I couldn't even like I try and conceptualize how difficult that would be to put that all together, to get people to come in to do this and everything. I mean, did you find that that was a difficulty getting people to come in, or it's kind of like you got the right people coming in, it was a good thing? Like, were there any hiccups with the production? If you can just kind of talk about that.
Sure. Okay. So the biggest hiccup was, we're filming this at the tail end of COVID, right? So we've had
Okay.
this for a while. So we're putting in all the COVID restrictions and everyone's masked up and we're trying to do everything. The photographer who came in, who's like, hey, we hired to do the BTS stuff. All of a sudden they're like, yeah, so sorry, I tested positive. And I'm like, got it. So you cannot come in. And then I'm
Right.
like, huh. But now it's a weird thing. So we still paid him for all the, days he couldn't come because he came in, it wasn't his. And I'm like, we're trying, and the reason we did that is we paid everyone. We tried to, we treated everyone really well. And it was at a point, this is kind of weird. I might get in trouble for what I'm about to say here, where Michael Lair, myself, Robin Pabello, everyone on the stunt team, the camera people, the PAs, we were kind of not happy with what was going on with the superhero genre at that time.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's just make our own stuff. Let's just and when we put the word out to answer your question of, how hard was it to get the top people that we wanted to work with? It wasn't, because all we said is, here's what we want to do, here's how we're going to do it. We got the budget, and we just want to execute this way, and we want to see who wants to be part of this great project to showcase what we can do. And the whole goal is to get people to say, well, this group is great. Why aren't they doing this movie? Why aren't they working over here? Why aren't they? So, and by the way, the trailer itself has already started those conversations. So to
Love
answer
it.
that question, people were just like, we're all fans of superhero stuff and that genre, and we just were like, we're not kind of crazy about where it was and where it was going. And we said, let's just do it ourselves. And, maybe it's going to work, maybe it won't, but we're going to do it and it's going to look great.
It's so interesting that you brought that up because I have had those conversations with people before where we're huge superhero fans, right? I mean, I was 18 when the first Iron Man movie came out. I grew up watching Batman the animated series. And I can admit that I was not a fan of a lot of things that I was seeing in the last couple of years. And I think that's why other like The Boys have been so popular, because it felt very much like a breath of fresh air from what we have been seeing. So I love that the mindset was, let's just do it on our own and everything like that. So um when can we expect this short to come out, and where would it be available?
We are talking with some distributors right now,
Okay.
and we will have a big, huge announcement when it's ready to be. It shouldn't be that long, by the way, not to be so ambiguous, but it's going to be in a little while and not too long. And we're finishing up the post production right now, and it's going to be fantastic. But we have a whole publicity campaign ready to launch, and you'll be amongst the first to know. But it should be very, very soon.
Amazing, amazing. Are there any conversations about potentially doing like a sequel and stuff like that?
To answer that, the how can I answer that safely without being too controversial? I've been having a lot of great conversations with different producers, different owners of different IP and what have you, and the answer is okay. Let me backtrack a little bit. I don't want to be that person who's like, yeah, the plans are to make something bigger or whatever. The answer is yes, I'd love to do that. Who wouldn't, right? And we got conversations going with some really interesting things, and everything's looking like it's going to be insanely positive with this project and some other projects. But until it happens, until the money is there, until contracts are signed, I want to avoid like over promising and under delivering. right? That's the whole thing. I'd rather have people go like, "Oh my God, this came out from out of nowhere. This is great," as opposed to saying like, "Hey, we're waiting on this. Where is it?" kind of thing.
Listen, I appreciate that, right? It's always good to kind of be cautiously optimistic. So I feel that.
Look,
Y-
the answer is we wanted what we did do with this superhero live action short is we proved a couple of different things to ourselves and which help when we talk to potential investors, sponsors, whatever it is, money people, and we say, here's what has been spent. We spent considerably less. Still a lot, but still considerably less. And we know how to produce stuff that looks great in a shorter period of time with less injuries, with that looks fantastic, with cutting edge action that you may not have seen before, with great like we have that team to do it. That's really what we wanted to show with it.
That's awesome. And so, James, you have your podcast, right? You're doing these short films. You did all these other amazing projects, especially with like animation and everything. Again, when the last time you were here, do you sit there and you go, what do I want to concentrate on now? Am I a podcaster? Am I a producer? It's kind of like, how do you contend with the duality of doing all these amazing things?
Thank you. That's a great way of saying it. Thank you. And I'm very honored that you said it like that. The reality is I don't see myself as a podcaster at all.
Right.
I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. I got a lot going on at all times by design. It's how I
Mm-hmm.
choose to have my life. The podcast is a great way to stay connected with wonderful people such as yourself, Geek Vibes Nation, and to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening within geek culture. So that's like it's a cool thing that enables a lot more doors to open,
Right.
right? And it's a great thing. I'm focusing on production, and production is so cool because it's not just, hey, we're turning on the cameras and let's go. It's like, which stunt people are we talking to today? I'm in contact with Michael Lear all the time. He's on another project. We're saying, okay, we're working on a kind of some cool concepts for some other stuff. I've got some reality stuff that I'm working on that I
Ooh.
hope will be announcing soon. So production to me, I love the magic of create or of helping to create this new something, a new universe, or to put a camera on something. That's really where my focus is. Now, with that being said, I highly recommend people get into podcasting because it's a great way to create even a small platform, never mind a bigger
Mm-hmm.
one. And everyone's realizing the power of like what you do in podcasting gets into people's heads, into their minds in a much more powerful way than other forms of communication. So I'm so thankful for who would win. I think we just broke over 250,000 social media followers on it. It's insane. Thank you. And it's growing organically, which I love. I
Yeah.
love meeting new people from it. So yeah, my focus is production. I still teach a couple MMA classes every week and jujitsu and all that. I've got a
You're just
you
a
know
busy guy.
I am. I got three kids. My wife is awesome. But you know what? It's like, to pull the curtain back, I used to be a software developer. I used to be a coder, right?
Awesome.
Clearly, I'm not designed to be sitting at a cubicle and doing that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I remember talking to this guy when I was working in Atlanta at a software company, and he was about to retire and he just turned 65 and really wonderful guy. And I said, cool. I said, what's the advice? And I was very young at the time. So what's the advice you would give me so I can understand the career? And he looks at me and he's like, if this is not for you, get the hell out right now
Yeah.
and just pursue what you want to do and just have the passion to do it. And I knock on wood and I thank God every day that I have this great family and this life that I was hoping for as a kid. And now I get to have it. So I hope that kind of answers that question.
No, 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 it absolutely does. And you brought up something else talking about the having your finger on the pulse with everything that's going on. I'm 34, right? And I think we talked outside of this and saying like, when you have your outside life and everything, I have been finding it a little more difficult to have my finger on the pulse with things that are happening. Like I find now that like my mom will be like, "Oh, what's the plans? What are happening with the MCU at DC?" And I'm like, "Got to go to Geek Vibes that com- do you find as you're getting older, you have children, you have a wife, you have a career and everything, do you find it a little difficult to kind of have your finger on the pulse as to what's happening in, say, pop culture?
So, okay, this is going to sound horrible. I like to cheat a
Okay.
lot. Okay, if there's a system, I'm like, how do I game the system to kind of figure stuff out? And part of living in LA and
Right.
taking 20 years to create a network of people where I can call someone or email someone and say, "Hey, can we jump on a call? I want to, what's going on with this over here, what have you." And that,
Ah,
yeah, so that's part of what I do. Now, by the way, if I didn't have something to offer back to these people, it wouldn't be worth their time to take the call. I don't blame them for that. And by the way, for the first 10 years, they didn't take my calls at all. And that's fine. That's totally cool. Screw them, whatever. Anyway, we're friends now. But the reality is like meeting writers and networking with people. This is something my wife, and again, she's brilliant, a New Yorker. I find like a lot of New Yorkers are brilliant actually, in a lot of different ways. But when she said
see,
like,
James, this is why we like having you on the show. This is why
I'm
we like
just,
having you
what
on
it
the
is.
show.
Thank you. But I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, by the way, around the
Yes,
world. I'm just saying that.
exactly.
But she said like you've got to really focus on like really put a lot of focus on creating your network, like your
Yes.
insiders, your people. Yeah, and it was just such brilliant advice. She told me that like well over 10 years ago, and I said, great, I'm going to take a chunk of my time. Here we go, let's focus in on that. So with a lot of people I meet who don't have advanced degrees or connections or what have you, I say, listen, if you want to get your finger on the pulse of an industry, start networking, start doing work within the industry for free if you can, as almost like an assistant or an
Right.
apprentice, if you will, which I did, which was kind of crazy. And all of a sudden, people are like, wow, you're actually good, or hey, let me talk to you about stuff. So the way I do it is I have a whole bunch of people who thankfully I've met who are kind of on the inside, who I've talked to in a lot of dinners. Now, by the way, that's also almost horribly blown up bad for me.
Right.
I had a dinner with someone who was an exec at Disney, and I thought they worked in the finance area, and they were more on the creative decision making side. I found out
Mm,
later. And so over dinner, he's like, "Hey, do you like Star Wars and Marvel?" He didn't know who I was. And I'm like, "Kinda, yes." And he's like, "How do you think we're doing with all that?" And I said, "Do you really want to know?" This is a couple of years, less than 2 years ago. I said, "You really want to know?" He's like, "Yeah." And I told him what I really thought. I said, "I wish it was great. I'm willing to spend money. I'm bringing my kids into Star Wars and I'm doing it. I'm bringing them in for you. We want to spend money and all that, but you're screwing up pretty
yeah,
bad." I said, there's no
very
return
much
on
so.
investment for being a fan." I just said, there's no, that my return on investment for being a fan for decades is not being, and I'm saying I don't need something back. I said, I just want to feel good about watching it and see the heroes win and, and all that kind of stuff. I'll never forget, he looks at me and then someone's like, hey, or the next day he contacts me and he's like, hey, you thought I was in finance, right? I'm like, no. And he tells me his actual position. And I'm like, great. I'm crossing Disney off my list of people I can ever work with ever. And he says, you know what? I heard what you said, and you're right. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
cool. Now, not that anything could be done about it, but it was just, I went on out on a limb. I said what I said, my truth, and he respected it, and we're still cool. So,
I think that's really cool though, honestly. And obviously that's like a whole nother conversation where it's like, as you said, things have not been great on the super or the Star Wars side and everything. But for you to be able to even voice that to someone and someone to even acknowledge that, I think that that's really cool. And for you to have those connections, and as you were saying, networking is very important. So that is probably the advice that you would give someone if they're looking to how do I get into this industry because I want to do things that are very similar to what you're doing.
well, there's two things I want to say. Like, I moved to LA, opened up a MMA training facility, and started kind of getting into production accidentally. And I
Right.
said, hey, I really want to do this. I could feel it. This is really where my passion is. And it was brought to my attention in some good ways and not good ways, but brought to my attention nonetheless that I didn't have a lot of experience or no experience, like
Right.
none. I didn't know how entertainment worked. I didn't know how to produce. I knew nothing about it. And what I realized was it's not just the knowledge, it's also having resources to call on to say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ. Do you have access? Yeah, sure, sure. Do you have, right? So networking overcomes a lack of connections, money, or knowledge in a huge way. And that's the first thing. And I also kind of want to direct you to something else too. I had a nice, interesting conversation about the Acolyte with some very, what's the right way to say it, interesting people of significance. I don't want to
Right.
mention names or what have you. And I said, and here's my whole stance on the Acolyte. I went online, I got slammed for this. I don't care. I said, yeah, these are different kind of ways of being a Jedi or whatever. It's a different type of storytelling, but you know what? The action's really good. I really like the action of the Acolyte. And I said, and everyone's like, well, what's your opinion? What do you think? I said, let's watch the whole series.
Right.
And then let's talk about it after. Whether you like it or didn't like it, and you can voice your opinion, but let's be cool and let's just watch the whole thing. Right. And I did it for a number of different reasons. Number one, you want to be fair to the production,
Right.
right? You want to be able, if you're going to give an opinion, watch the whole thing so you can talk about it as a whole, as opposed to here's a piece, because you don't know if something else will be done to justify a storyline, whatever it is. But the reality is, I wanted the people who made Star Wars to kind of see, like, got it. People watch the whole thing. Here's what they think,
Right.
right? In a conversational, no bullshit, pardon me, sorry, no nasty agenda type of talk, because that's just not even in my vernacular. Just was it good or was it not good? That's it. And I got slammed for it. But the whole point I made was we're in an era now where both sides will come down on each other without
Mhm.
giving the production a chance, right? And I think we need to course correct right now. We need to say, okay, let's have people who want to review this. Condition is you got to watch the whole thing. If you said you watched the first episode, you didn't like it, great. That's your opinion. It stops right there. Got it.
Well,
Watch the whole thing.
not for nothing, sometimes with these screeners, and I understand they do it because maybe they don't want spoilers out there, but a lot of times they're only giving you the first 3 or 4 episodes and they're like, okay, review this. The first 3 or 4 episodes could be really bad or they could be really good, and then the rest of the season may be the opposite. I would say with the Acolyte, I found it more boring than anything else. But the fight sequences in episode 5, especially, were amazing. So I'm like, I would like to see more of that. Let's tune up the story. But I thought the fight sequences were pretty good, honestly.
I feel like there is a great basis for an amazing sci-fi story to be told that would have been great outside of Star Wars.
Yes.
It's the same way I look at The Last Jedi, which as a Star Wars movie, I can't stand. There's so much wrong with it. It's ridiculous. By the way, I love the character of Bray Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Finn should have been a Jedi. Obviously, he didn't.
100%.
Right? Just there's so much. By the way, at the end of the last, sorry to harp on this, everyone's like, "Get off The Last Jedi." I'm like, I won't
I
because
will never.
never. Did you know that Poe Dameron didn't meet Rey until the end of The Last Jedi?
I want to say yes because about so really quick, I like I love Star Wars, right? I grew up watching the prequels and everything, but I want to say I wasn't like an overly huge fan up until probably like a year or so ago. Somehow I started like audiobooks, started listening to like all of the audiobooks on Audible, like huge now, right? So I rewatched all the movies. I rewatched the sequels and it was just like and I'm gonna get hate on this, right?
Go on.
The Last Jedi is a terrible Star Wars movie, right? But out of the three, I want to say it was the best one as a movie,
Interesting.
but not as a Star Wars movie. As a Star Wars movie, it was terrible. But I like the visuals of The Last Jedi, right? Like there was a lot of really cool things like that. And I really hated on Ryan Johnson when it first came out. But I also then have to give him credit for doing things differently as say the other two that really just pulled from the old movies and kind of rehashed it. And that's going to be like I am not a Last Jedi fan at all, believe me. The whole thing was bad. But I'm just saying that out of the three, it was visually to me the most beautiful one.
So what's interesting to me is what you're saying about this. The Last Jedi, and what's tragic about this is The Last Jedi has some of the best cinematography
Mm-hmm.
and some great action. Not the action. The action of The Last Jedi I found horrible. By the way, from the
Especially
stunts.
when they I watched all these videos of them breaking down the scene of Rey and Kylo fighting the
Oh my god,
guards, and when you really break it down, you're like, this is not
it's
good.
not good at all. And the problem, and I hate saying this because I work with stunt people a lot, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of people in that community, and we're all tight and everything. But the problem is, like every fight scene has to have its own story.
Yeah.
At the end of that story, Ray came out clearly being the superior fighter, more powerful person, on top of Kylo Ren, right?
Right.
Okay, got it. But then at the end of the story, she's like kind of trying to run around, get everything together, and Kylo Ren's trying to take on the big bad, the big powerful Luke Skywalker, who's not even really there. I mean, it was just like you're not making sense on how you're giving. And then Ryan Johnson did a couple of interviews where I believe he said something to the effect of, "We're going to tell the audience what they want, as opposed to
Mm,
saying the audience wants to feel great about their heroes."
right.
Right. And then when you kind of come back to the Acolyte, I feel it was a bit more, and I don't know Leslie, the director, I don't know the rest, so I don't want to say this, but as I'm watching this from a producer standpoint, I
Hmm.
said, you know what? I feel like they're trying to tap into some of what the fans want, like the
Right.
fight scenes that were really cool and everything. But then story wise, they're saying, no, 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 we're going to tell you what you want, as opposed to saying like, oh, like when they killed the main hero Saul at the end and the way he was killed, he just accepted it. I'm like, no
Which
one wants that.
to
No one wants
me, that was the best character and the best actor in the entire show. And I'm like, you kill him off? So we can't even potentially have him again in something? Yeah, no, I
that. Right.
wasn't accepting that.
That's what's tragic about Star Wars and even Marvel to an extent. But I think Marvel is going to course correct. My fear is, I don't know if Star Wars has the ability to do a Deadpool and Wolverine right now.
No.
Right? I don't know. I think the rebuild for Star Wars is going to take some time. I think it's possible, but Deadpool and Wolverine was a great shot in the arm of penicillin that we needed, and now a lot of people are insanely excited about Marvel who are former MCU fans. They're like, no, no, we're okay. This means so much, and now people are talking about it in a big
Yes.
way. When I went to San Diego Comic Con this past summer, I like to finger on the pulse of things. Did you know what I noticed that was really eerie? It
What?
was a lack of talk of Star Wars.
Which is weird. This is like one of the biggest franchises. Should be a no-brainer when it comes to that.
Right, exactly. And it was weird. They had this huge Star Wars display that they put on, but it was all based on Acolyte stuff.
Right.
And at least the times I walked through there, and I was there from Thursday to Sunday, I didn't, and I could be wrong, maybe I didn't see it, but when I went through it, I didn't see a lot of people, and I didn't go through it, who
Right.
wanted to go through and check it out. Whereas opposed last year, here's Boba Fett stuff, and here's Darth Vader's, and I was just like, I just don't think, I think they really miscalculated, which is unfortunate. I wanted the Acolyte to be fantastic. I want to love
Yeah,
it. I
of
want to tell everyone
course.
about it. I want people just because I love talking to people about Star Wars and right, like all as you can tell, and it's sad when people don't want to talk about it because they don't like it so much that they're like, no, we just don't even talk about it.
I've felt that because I love Star Wars, I love Marvel. Like again, I'm a huge MCU fan and it has sucked when you're like I want these things to be good, but I'm almost like not excited for things. But I mean, also, by the way, very random, very jealous that you got to go to San Diego Comic-Con. So, that
I
sucks for me.
It does. You know what? If I can make a suggestion, like the convention itself is great, but I
Mhm.
spent most of my time outside of the convention.
Really? Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking to people and everything?
There's amazing events.
Yep.
There's great stuff to do. There's stuff around the convention you can do outside. I mean, there's just lots of, that's why I want to encourage people. If you can't make it to the convention itself, I get it. That's not cool, but there's so much great stuff. I convinced some friends just to come down to San Diego for one day and say, just walk around and just
Yeah.
be have part of the fun in the Gaslamp District and all that. And that's why I love San Diego Comic Con too, is because there's so much great stuff to do in the convention and outside of the convention. It's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't know. I've never been to San Diego Comic Con. New York Comic Con is just around the corner, so that's very exciting. Um, I went to this past summer. I was telling you about in Indianapolis, they do PopCon. That was a lot of fun. So it feels good to still be a nerd, even though we're getting older and everything. I'm still embracing the geek culture. I don't think that'll ever go away.
It's a funny thing because I'm older than you are by a good amount, and I'm still a big kid,
Yeah,
right? And I went to the gym the other day, and I had my old X-Men shirt on. It had the circular logo for the Xavier School for Gifted Children on it.
love it.
I'm putting it on, and I'm working out hard. And this other guy looks over, and he just sees my shirt, and he's like, Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. Now, I don't know. Maybe he was hitting on me. I have no idea. I'm assuming it was my shirt. Let's just keep going with that. But it was just cool. I'm sure it was a shirt, but it was just cool that, like, growing up, if I wore a Batman shirt when I was a kid, that's an
Hmm.
instant recipe for getting beat up and teased and all that
Yep.
kind of good stuff. Excuse me. Now I can wear a Batman shirt, and if anyone says anything, I can beat them up, and
Ex-
people will cheer me on. It's a different world, Tia, is all I'm trying to say. Not that you should be violent, but if violence tries to find you, feel free to answer back and stand up for Batman.
Listen, I feel the same way. I grew up, I was watching Dragon Ball Z, I was watching Digimon, and that were things that people kind of looked at you like you were weird for doing. And now it's the cool stuff. I hope you don't mind me asking, are your kids into like the geek culture and everything? And I asked that because my boyfriend and I are trying to have a family and everything.
Oh, fantastic.
And I said, I go, wouldn't it be really funny? Because neither of us are into sports. I go, wouldn't it be funny if our kid was the exact opposite and was like really into football, couldn't care less about anything nerdy or music or anything? And it's like all of a sudden they come in, they're like, let's go Giants. And it's like, ah.
You know what it is? It's what. So, first of all, congratulations. I think you're going to be an amazing mom for
Thank you.
sure, and you'll be a cool mom too, which is even better. Yes, to answer your question, hell yes, my kids are into this kind of stuff. And what's great is, my oldest son, he shares my passion for technology, and we talk about AI and all that stuff. And he and I at Comic-Con, we have our tradition where on certain nights of the weekend, we have to watch Dragon Ball Super.
I
So
love
we
it.
have to watch a few episodes of Dragon Ball Super before we head out for dinner and then do crazy stuff that evening. He's 18 now, so that tells you, how long we've been doing that. My other son, we're watching. We happen to know Adam MacArthur is a wonderful guy, amazing actor, amazing voice actor, and he's on Jujutsu Kaisen and Kaiju number 8. So he and I are my son. We're watching him and going like, oh yeah, we're watching all those series. And then with my other child, we're watching X-Men '97.
Oh yeah,
And now we're walking, and now that they're like, okay, so what's Nightcrawler's story? And I'm like, well, let's watch the original X-Men to get into it. And they're also my Star Wars buddies. So yes, my kids are totally into it. But
yeah.
on a side note, I told my kids, and they all like their individual sports, and they're like, what's the one thing we have to be, or what's the one condition if we watch this? And I talked to my wife about it. And I said, you can be into any aspect of geek culture you want, expect to expect pushback from people who don't get it. I said
Hmm.
people are celebrating when they wear their favorite NFL football team jersey, right? If they wear a Kansas City Chief jersey and the hat and all that, like, oh wow, you're a big fan. If I were to wear a Batman jersey and a Batman hat and walk anywhere, people might still give me like the whatever, which is totally fine. So I said the other thing is, if you're going to be in geek culture, you have to know how to fight.
Yes.
You got to know how to stand up for yourself
In
personally.
today's day and age, you have to learn how to defend yourself.
Yep. And so I tell them, you're going to take lessons with me. You're going to take group classes and what have you. But this is a non-start. You have to know how to fight. I don't want you getting into fights, but if it comes to you or people start making fun of you or someone gets it, and just in general, I said, if you want geek culture, you want to be into geek culture and show it proudly, know how to fight and protect yourself and stand up for others. To me, that's look, I'm 6'3", I'm 260. I've been training for decades. When someone makes fun of me or something, like, because it still happens, and I'm like, cool, what did you say? And I kind of lean into them, and they're like, I said, oh, my Batman shirt. You think it's funny? Don't worry, I can get you the same size, or I'll get you your size, and we can be best friends. Are we best friends now? And they're just like, you are a weird ass. And I'm like, hell yeah, I am. So that's my TED talk. Hope you enjoyed it.
It it just reminds me of the Hey Arnold episode where he was gonna get beat up and he was like, you can't beat up a crazy person, he just acted crazy. It's like that's what it reminds me of. It's like just show them even more your weirdness. But no, so are your kids like really into MMA? They're like good fighters and everything like that?
I'd say they're okay. This is horrible. I mean, yes, they have more skill than say the average kid. I've got very high standards. I used to train fighters, and I
Hmm.
managed and coached and cornered fighters. I've done a couple of fights myself. So I'm like, if you want to say, are they good fighters? I'm like, well, that means they've got to be like they know how to protect themselves
Okay.
and stand up for themselves. And they also, one thing I talk to them a lot about is like, hey, recognize when you need to use whatever level of severity you need. So
Hmm.
they're very good at using their words and knowing how to talk people down, from getting whatever it is, and using self-defense, or what I like to call justified self-offense, at
Right.
the right time.
Nice. Random question. Because we're talking about fighting and stunt choreography and all that good stuff. Are you excited for the upcoming Deadpool series? I mean, not Deadpool, sorry, Daredevil, the upcoming Daredevil series, because the fights in those on Netflix were some of the best to me.
You know what? Okay, so to say I'm insanely excited for Daredevil is an understatement. I really, really am. I love it. I actually was one of the, I don't know why. I talked with one of the writers of Echo,
Oh, okay.
and she was kind of disappointed with how people reacted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I kind of pulled her aside. And by the way, the budget for Echo was a fraction of the budget of the Acolyte, literally. So
Oh, yeah.
what they had to work with, there was some cool stuff, and they did some of the action stuff. I thought was great. I told her outright, I felt like the ending may have been a little, but I said leading up to it, there's some really, and then plus what came from it and some discussion I said was really cool. Um, but I said what I really loved was the insertion of Daredevil into one of
Yes.
the fight scenes. And yeah, they knew how to write that character really. The fight, you got to write a fight scene, right? You got
Yeah.
to design a fight scene, and the writers have to give a good story and background to that to get to the stunt coordinator and what have you. So I said that was fantastic. I love what they're doing with Daredevil. He's going to
Mm-hmm.
be this connective tissue, the same way like you saw like Batman was in Justice League, the animated series, where you
Yeah.
could have stuff happening and then Batman's there and he's doing stuff and he connects over here. I just love it when a street level character superhero can insert themselves in a great way within a TV series, a movie, or what have you, and show like why they're a badass. You know, honestly, I really hope Daredevil becomes a member of the Avengers.
I hope so too. And I think this is why it feels like the MCU is getting the defibrillator
Yeah,
because Deadpool, Daredevil coming up. I liked Echo. Did I think
yeah.
it was the best thing ever? No, but it was what, only 5 episodes? I thought for 5 episodes it was good. The action sequences were great. I loved the insertion of Wilson Fisk. And that one fight scene with Daredevil was just like makes it worth it. This was great. So I'm very much looking forward to the Daredevil series, and John Bernthal has been confirmed to return as Frank Castle. So
Oh, what a
I'm
great
very
Punisher!
pumped.
I mean, how can you do better? How can you do better than that for the Punisher? He's so good. He is so good.
But I love that this became a talk about everything. I just when I get you on, James, I know that you are like a huge fan of geek culture. You know a lot and everything, and I always just want to get like your opinions on things. But to kind of circle back around to Alpha Initiative Zero, so the fight sequences look great. Obviously, they're going to be in everything. You're going to give us updates on when we can actually see this short, but is it so you sent me a link to the trailer, but is the trailer on YouTube so people can see?
So the link right now is on the Creative Extreme website, their
Okay.
homepage. So if you want to check out the trailer, go to www.thecreativeextreme.com. Check it out. You know, I love YouTube. I really, really do.
Hmm.
What I didn't want to have happen is put a trailer on YouTube and then us having to do all of the paid ads and what have you. And
Right.
then if all of a sudden the views weren't a certain level, people are like, well, people are really, and then comments. I'm like, let's just not even have all that because the real thing too with this trailer and the superhero short, I'd love to say, well, it's all about my production group, well, the production group I get to be part of. It's all about what we can do. No, the reality is we want to celebrate the creative extreme and we want
Right.
to celebrate, indie comic books and comic books in general and the people behind them that just do this because this is what they love to do. Right.
Right.
So I'm like, no, no, we talked about it as a meeting. And I said, hey, my suggestion is let's put the trailer on the creativeextreme.com site and let's just tell people to go there. And I hope people go there and say, like, wait, there's a whole lot more to this. And they start exploring it and create some organic, love for the TCE universe.
And as you said, there is a comic for Alpha Initiative Zero out already. Is that in physical form or digital?
I think I could be wrong, but I think you can get both if
Okay.
you order it from the website.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, James, I mean, I love having you on, by the way.
Thank you.
Again, as I said, when Kanan, our editor in chief was like, "Do you want to talk to James again?" Yes. I do demand that you invite me back to Who Would Win. It doesn't have to be soon, but I do demand that I get invited back. Um,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Tia. There's a problem here, and
because I didn't give you the win.
no, that's just a side issue that we'll focus on greatly right now. No, the thing is, I think what happened, correct me if I'm wrong, you came on the show
Hmm.
and you know who I was, you didn't know Ray Stacane as my co-host, and you felt bad for him. And I think, and I appreciate that. And you're like,
Yeah.
Ray, he probably doesn't have a lot of nice things. Let's give him a win. And you know what? I get it, but we just talked about it. No, you got to go with your gut. You got to go with what's right. And if that happens to be whoever I'm debating within the episode, so be it. Like it was last time. I should have got the win. But whatever, you do you. As long as you know that ahead of time, come on in. Yes, the bottom line is we loved having you on the show. The fan base loved having you on the show. So we would love to have you back.
Whenever you just let me know. But James, please let everyone know, where they can find you, what they should be following and everything, and also what they should be following to know when Alpha Initiative Zero comes out. Oh, actually, before I get to that, actually, no. You say that first, and then I'll get to what I wanted to ask after. Listen, I've only still had one cup of coffee today. I'm a usually a 2 cup of coffee before I do anything type person.
Got it. Okay. I will be sending you some coffee for our next
Thank
interview, making sure it all gets delivered to you.
you.
You could find me at James Gavsie on X and Facebook. Not doing a lot on Instagram these days, but for the Who Would Win show, we're everywhere. So look up at Who Would Win show on X/Twitter, Instagram. Also, we're doing more stuff on TikTok. Facebook seems to be blowing up for us for some interesting reason. So we've got the Who Would Win Facebook page, the Who Would Win Facebook group, which is just getting in some great, insane, and awesome arguments. I think like I said, we broke over 100,000 members on that. For some, I guess we're just feeding the algorithm the right way.
Nice.
And download the Who Would Win show wherever you go for podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and all those other great places.
Amazing, amazing. And so, before I let you go and actually enjoy your Sunday with your family, you said you had some other projects kind of in the works and everything. Can you talk about any stuff, or do we gotta wait?
I sure can't.
The
No,
way you said that, just I sure can. I was like,
I
oh,
know.
okay, there's no follow-up. That's fine.
You know what? It's like the running joke with my wife and I is like we get invited to a lot of dinner parties once.
Right.
Right? Like because of what I do and the hijinks that ensue. There's a lot of stuff I'm working on right now, and not to sound horribly typical, they're in different levels of production or stages of production. I can tell you we shot a reality competition series pilot for something that I hope to say very soon that looks insane. And all I can say is tune into the Who Would Win show, follow me on social media, and when it's the right time to announce things, as you well know, when it's really the right time and there's no space, and I'm like, here you go, enjoy it, I will make those big announcements.
Amazing. Well, anytime you want to come back on and, promote any project that you're doing, we would love to have you. If you are not subscribed to this channel, Geek Vibes Nation, please make sure that you're subscribed. We do a ton of interviews, lots of good stuff. You can check us out on we're on mostly Twitter, X. But you can obviously check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Geek Vibes Nation. GeekVibesNation.com has all of our written reviews for movies, TV shows, and all that good stuff. And as a final thing, please make sure you check out our good friends at the KJ Today Show. We've been doing a lot of collaboration with them. I will actually be on one of their shows this upcoming week, so please make sure you check them out. And James, as always, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. Always an honor and a pleasure.
Bye.